We all think, evaluate, and plan in our head, but our head doesn't just contain knowledge and facts. It contains our biases, our prejudices, our pain, our hurt, our emotions, our feelings. So when we are making our plans and choosing our actions, we may not always be using the most efficient ingredients or the most efficient methods. What would it be like if we could instead think on paper? Let's get into it. Hello everyone, Wallace Russell from CoachWallaceRussell.com. Get it out of your head and onto the page. So for the examples I will provide today, it's not just about writing, but even using the computer can often work. The key here is that it is not all happening here, it is happening outside of you so you can have a better viewpoint. Why should you consider thinking on paper? Well, one is that your mind is sneaky. It has a selective memory. It is trying to protect you, so it might only have you remember the things that make you feel good or that make you feel safe. So your mind can have you forget something. It can work against you for the long term because it's trying to keep you safe. It also has to service your feelings. It doesn't want your feelings to be hurt. It doesn't want you to feel bad or think bad about yourself, so it may not give you all the information all at once. Have you ever said to yourself, oh yeah, I forgot about that? That's how your mind can possibly work against you. But paper, once you write it down, it's there. Now, how can you use paper to think? Well, the first way you can do it is to solve problems. For example, something as simple as a chart that says, should I do this or should I not do this? And listing the reasons why. You are not going to have that entire chart in your head. You actually need to write it down so you can see how it weighs and what weighs against it. You need it outside of you. And then once you have it there in a non-biased way, you can reintegrate it back into your brain and make a better decision. But the decision may seem obvious once you've written it. So just a simple chart is a way to use paper as a way to think. Another way is to set goals. They may tell you can set them in your head. Of course, that's where they come from. But we may forget them 3 months later. What was I supposed to do again? Or you may misremember. I had a friend that said I was going to write a certain amount of words every day. But later, when I spoke to him, he said, well, I was going to write a certain amount of words and I needed them to be about a certain thing. So, well, you didn't say that in the beginning. Did you change it? Yeah, I kind of did. The issue is, once it is on paper, it is clear. There's no misrepresentation. There's no misunderstanding once you put it on the paper, because whatever's happening in your life can shift how you remember things. So setting goals should always be written down. Another way to think on paper is budgeting. You cannot hold your budget in your head. How much do you spend on electricity? How much do you spend on gas? How much do you spend on clothes? How much do you spend on food? How much do you spend on eating out, dating, drinking? All of these things, there are a lot of them. And having a budget, not so much that you have to stick by it, not in this case, but to at least know what you're spending. If you are shooting from the hip, as I've heard it said, or if you just seeing what money is there and spending what you have to spend, that may not work out best for you because you haven't written it down and made it clear. You haven't told yourself what you're really spending. And some people don't write it down because they don't really want to know. You may not want to know that you're spending too much on going out. You may not want to know how much that is costing you. So you may not write it down because your memory can be as selective as it wants, but paper cannot. Another way of thinking on paper is using a calendar. Not only can you track birthdays and anniversaries, But you can also track when the last time was you spoke to someone. You can keep track of your appointments. Some people hire a secretary in their business to keep track of their appointments because they know they can't keep it in their head. They know that's too much and it's not the best use of their time. So putting these things into a calendar, or putting your goals or cutoff times into a calendar that you can see, will enable you to organize your time day to day better than if you keep it in your head. One of the most obvious ways to think on paper is to read books. Now, again, you're taking something in, but the idea here is that new information can come to you from some place that doesn't originate here. And you can make notes. You can learn, take notes on what you've learned, and use that in a computational way or additive way to rearrange that information you've learned or you've taken in so that it makes more sense to you, so that you can create a plan from it. Because if you only read and take it into your head and don't write things down or don't take notes, anyone who goes to college will tell you no matter how much you read, you have to take notes. But reading gives you something to take notes on. Reading causes you to organize, at least successful reading, to organize your thoughts and this new information in a way to learn it better. So reading may be the start of this, but taking the notes, actually, organizing the notes into something you can use, into something that moves you forward or gets you closer to your goal, is a way of thinking on paper. Another thing that, well, it seems like it would be obvious, but maybe it's not. You should be keeping a journal. Now, I'm not saying you have to say, "Dear diary, today this person didn't look at me the way I liked." I'm not saying that. However, if that's what you want to write, do that. Journals can be used in a lot of different ways, and I know people, including myself, that have multiple journals for different things. I have someone who wants to keep track of how they spend their money, so they have a journal to keep track of all the money that goes into and comes out of their life. I have people that keep a happiness journal because they don't often notice or remember when good things happen in their life, and they need a journal to keep track and see the frequency that that's happening and maybe see how to keep it happening more. Another way I use a journal, one of my many journals, is a way of dealing with problems. When something is bothering me, it may not even be important, but it may be plaguing me. It may be some emotional or petty thing I'm going through. And I go through them. I'm a human being. But if you write down what that is and what's happening, not necessarily that anyone else needs to see it, but if you write it down, a lot of the emotion and energy, however negative it may be, comes out of you and onto the page. It may still be an issue for you, but it will not seem as urgent and as large as it is, or as it was before you began to write it down. Another way I use a journal, and I have a special journal for this, is to keep track of good ideas. I read a lot, and so sometimes I read to help me get to sleep. And when I come across something that is kind of amazing or that I want to keep a note on, I pull out my journal that I keep near my bed to write down, "Hey, this is a good idea. This happened and you should always do this. And I want to look more into that." So once a week, I look back at those notes and see if I can incorporate that knowledge into my life. But if I try to remember those good ideas, gone 15 minutes after. So I'll stop reading when that happens to write it down. Sometimes in my car, I may even pull over if it's that big an idea. Or I may stop whatever else I'm doing because I need to make note of this because I can use that later. But if I trust that I will remember it, that trust will be broken because I won't. And it's not just because I'm a little bit older. It's just that my mind keeps moving on to something else. But when there's something great that happens in your life or something new, you need to be writing that down, and then you need to be going back and organizing them into something you can use, maybe into the book that you will one day write. Sometimes I say, "Oh, I forgot about that." Of course you forgot about it. You can't remember everything. You can't pay attention to everything all the time, but you can take notes. You can write things down. You can put them into a system that will come back and enrich you later. And that's one of the things that thinking on paper can do for you. So I encourage all of you, take advantage of what pen and paper or computer notes or whatever you use to find a way to improve your thinking and find a way to improve on what it can do for you. That's why we have computers. That's why we have secretaries. That's why we have appointment calendars. That's why we have all these things, because our mind is not going to keep track of every single thing, and our mind is not going to give us all the viewpoints. You ever wonder why in a meeting that people have graphs? Because me telling you isn't enough. Me giving you the words isn't enough. Graphs, a way to think on paper, shows you relationships in a way that words will not express well. This is another way that paper can help you think. Thank you for taking the time to watch this video. Please leave any comments and suggestions in the comment section below. If you'd like to work with me or look into that, there's a link below to set up a free consultation. I look forward to the opportunity to help if I can. Again, your time and your energy is appreciated, and I look forward to the next time. See you then.